Hey everybody, Coach Joe Villegas here, and welcome to Real Results. This is the show where we help you to improve your health, increase your wealth, and live a more fulfilling life. And who better to join me on our first episode than the mighty and powerful Ryan Grady. Ryan, thank you for joining me.
Joe, thank you for having me. Well, that is quite the intro, and I will accept every last bit of it.
I got to set expectations up front.
Sure. No pressure or anything, right?
For sure. So, Ryan, I just want to hop right into it. Sure. Today, we are focusing on financial wellness. Mm-hmm. That's what our focus is today. Lucky for our audience here is you're kind of a unicorn in the sense that you've mastered the fitness realm, which is how I know you, how we got introduced, and you moved into the financial realm. But you've got quite a story to lead us to where we are today. So why don't you fill us in, give some background to our viewers as to what got you into finance. How'd you get started?
Sure. So like you said, we'll take it back a little bit to how I first got into fitness. Growing up, I was always an athlete, loved sports. And when I looked back as I got out of college and into my working years, what I loved about sports wasn't necessarily the games, it was the practice. It was the struggle to get better. I loved that. Yeah. And as I started to think about that, I was passionate about that, and I thought to myself, well, how can I turn that into a career? Well, fitness, right? And I did start in working with athletes primarily and helping them on their journey with training and whether it be high school, college. And I just really fell in love with that. The ability to give somebody the freedom to go from point A to B to get to where they want to go. And in this case, it was fitness, right? So that's how it started. But then it evolved into, well, athletes are great, but that's a small percentage of the population. No doubt. What about friends and family and people who, wow, this can really make an impactful change on their life, yes. Right? And again, I kept coming back to that same theme of embracing the struggle, right? Okay. Without struggle, there is no progress, all that stuff. And I really wanted to do something in that realm. So then it got into fitness for the general population. Right. And it was really incredible to me to see the impact you can have, as you know very well, on people's lives, right? We'll get into finance here in a little bit, but guess what? You can have all the money in the world. Yes. If you don't have your health, what good is it?
Yeah, I had a mentor actually who said his quote to me was, "I've never seen a hearse with a roof rack on it."
That's right.
Right? You can't take it with you.
Can't take it with you.
Health and wealth go hand in hand.
100%.
And you're experiencing that firsthand through your career. So take me through that next evolution. So we got through the fitness piece, and then switching to finance is kind of the 180. So like where did that take place? How'd that happen? What inspired you to do it?
So a couple of things, and part of that is my life story, which I'd like to share because again, it goes into the journey and staying with that theme of embracing struggle and improving in that. So got into fitness, and what I found was helping people with fitness was one thing, but life still throws things at you that need to be addressed, right? So yeah, we want to strengthen the body and the mind through fitness, but people would come into the gym, and you know this, right? Hey, what's wrong, man? Work, life, a loved one passed away, bills are piling up, and I don't know what to do about it. And all of a sudden I found like, man, I can't help as much as I want. Great, we could do burpees and squats, I can get you fitter, which is vitally important, like we just talked about, but I become passionate about how can I do more? How can I? And somebody that I had worked with was in finance and had repeatedly said, hey, I see something in you that would bring value to my clients. I can teach you the finance side of it, but I see a passion in you to help that I want in my business because that's what our clients need. Yes. Make no mistake about it, first piece of financial advice for anyone listening is, if you're working with somebody, that's someone's number one priority should be getting to know you and what matters most to you. They can talk about the market, they could talk about different investment strategies. Right. None of that matters unless they intimately know what matters to you most. So there's a good takeaway right away. That should be the most important thing when engaging with somebody in that field.
And so, ask a quick question. So, would you even say too that folks watching should probably get very intimate into what their wants and needs are?
Absolutely.
Right? Like, you see so much stuff on social media or the internet saying, oh, we want to get a nice car, a Lambo, or buy this big house, whatever, but you might not need to do all that to reach what your real goals are, right? And the same with fitness. You might not need to become a CrossFit Games athlete to look the way you want or feel the way you want or experience life the way you want.
Perfectly said.
So like how do you kind of broach that subject with folks when they come to you and maybe they don't even know where to start? You want to get to know them, but they might need to get to know themselves a little bit. So how do you make that happen?
And it's exactly that, right? Those probing questions, that initial meeting, right? So at our company, Paradigm Wealth Advisory, the way we operate is that first discussion, that first meeting is everything. We're not charged. There's no, hey, you got to pay money to come talk to us. We want to sit down and have that conversation. And often, to your point, it goes in ways that the people didn't even expect. They came in thinking they were going to be asking about retirement, and now we're talking about college planning. We're talking about taxes. We're talking about estate planning. We're talking about so many things that they were like, I never even thought of that. Right? And that's our job, is to uncover those. And sometimes the conversations are hard. Estate planning, no, you don't want to think about that sometimes, but you really have to, and you really should. So, yes, that happens. And that segs perfectly into what happened in my life that really, that really cemented, hey, this is where I belong and where I need to be. A series of challenges that befell me and my family, starting with wife and I got married in 2016, beautiful honeymoon, went to Bali. If you can go to Bali, go to Bali.
No doubt.
If you need help saving money for Bali, give me a call.
Talk to Ryan. He will help you get there.
Because you don't want to miss out. What a beautiful place. So a beautiful wedding, beautiful honeymoon, come home, and I'll never forget calling my sister to say we got home from the airport, and she's like, hey, didn't want to tell you we were away, but Dad was diagnosed with cancer, right? Hey, listen, if you live in today's world, no one really gets to escape that in terms of having a friend, somebody you know. So, okay, great, what do we got to do? How do we beat this thing, right? Well, fast forward 8 months, my dad fought, and after 8 months, it got him, right? So, something that I took away from that was, I remember driving him to the hospital, and I remember how nervous he was about what's the test going to show, what's the doctor going to say, what's the next step. He was so scared, and I said to him, Dad, listen, I don't have cancer, and I'm 30 years younger than you, but guess what? We're in the same boat. You're here now, I'm here now. I might not be here tomorrow, and you might still be here.
Right.
So let's not worry about, let's focus on what we have to do right now.
Yes.
And that is something that, whether it's health and wellness, whether it's finances, life in general, what a huge, important lesson to learn right away. You can make yourself worried sick about tomorrow, next month, next year, and maybe that comes into fruition. Maybe it doesn't.
Maybe it doesn't.
Right?
Yeah.
But you're here now. You have things you can control and do now. So that was, an impactful takeaway I got from that. So I lost my dad. A couple months later, my wife gets diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which, if anybody is familiar with those types, health-wise, and again, better shape than me. I mean, she is a phenomenal athlete.
She's like super shape.
Yeah, she's a phenomenal athlete. So, to see her body change and the weight loss was like, wow, So, that was such a challenge. And then to have to be supportive for her, right? And realizing, I wish I was better prepared. I wish, I think I did a great job. But you never think those things are going to happen to you. When they do, I look back, what could I have done to have been a better husband or been more supportive, and I thought about that. Fast forward the following year, my sister loses her husband in a car accident.
Gosh.
So 3 young kids under the age, I think at the time of 12, right? And now all of a sudden she went from a life going in this direction that takes this unbelievable turn, And
unbelievable.
And, she's asking the question, not only does she have to now plan a wake, a funeral for her husband, can I live in this house? Can my kids go to college? How is this going to work financially too? And something that the takeaway there is, life's not fair. Life isn't fair, and that's an inevitability. Sometimes people say, hey, you get what you deserve in life.
Sure.
Sometimes you don't.
Right.
Sometimes you get heaped with a lot that you don't deserve.
Bad things happen to good people all the time.
And you think, what can I do in life to prepare? So the theme I'm getting to is like, hey, how can I have trained my mind, my body? How can I train every part of me so that when adversity strikes, I can be the husband, the father, the brother, the friend that I need to be there for my loved ones, right? So the final one was my wife. We were blessed to get pregnant with twins, and then sadly, in childbirth, we lost our twins, Graham and Savannah. Doesn't get any harder than that. To have to hold your children, your arms, and watch them take their last breath, there's no words to describe what that is. So, put all those things together, and it was like, wow, we really have gotten dumped on.
Yeah.
And it was a crossroads for me, man.
For sure.
It could have really went this way and said, you know what, life is unfair. If you believe in God, and maybe I'm angry at God, there was a lot of reasons to throw in the towel.
Yes.
And it never crossed my mind. I never did.
You're not that kind of person.
It's not a guy. No. And unbeknownst to me, it was all those years of training and struggle, and that I really did embrace it through those years. And so when adversity struck, I was ready to man up and do the things I needed to do.
Right.
Do I think I could have done more? I don't know. But here's what I do know. life isn't over yet. And that means
For sure.
there's still some adversity and struggle out there, and I'm going to be ready
Yes.
as much as I can when it comes back, right?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the beautiful thing of what we're talking about here. So you've been through so much, and so much that's like unfathomable to some
Sure.
people. My wife and I, we just had our son. He's going to turn 4 months here in a week, and I couldn't even imagine not having him in my life now, even though he's only been around a little while.
That's it.
Doesn't let us sleep very much, but that's okay. We'll forgive you, bud. It's all good. But I think what's really beautiful about this whole thing is you've taken these struggles, and not only have you overcome adversity, you've helped your immediate circle do the same.
Yeah.
And now you're helping folks to learn from what you've been through. So
Absolutely.
let's, if we could, switch
Yeah,
gears a little bit
yeah.
and start to talk about that. So, I mean, it's not a scare tactic to say,
No.
hey, things are going to happen to you in life. That's
Not
just
at
a
all.
fact.
That's a fact.
It's a fact.
You listen, you can live your entire life problem-free. God bless you who you are that has that life.
boring life,
But
though.
guess
I mean,
what? They're exactly right, right? And I say that all the time. Struggle, when you go through the types of things that I've gone through, and listen, I am not here to cry a sob story. There's people who've gone through things that
sure.
would make my story would look meager. So I'm very well aware of that. But because of what I've been through, I've been able to access emotions and feelings that, for better or worse, other people won't ever understand. Right? So we get a short time on this earth, and I've been able to feel those things and think those things and have those emotions that.
You've lived a lot.
I've lived a lot.
Lived a lot.
I've lived a lot, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's something to be said for that. So that's where I'm coming from, and that's what I bring now into my financial relationships with my clients. Listen, when we talk about finance, you know, you can turn the news nowadays on your, right? It's a different landscape.
Yes.
People can open their cell phones and check and read articles, and you know,
Anytime,
and really feel like, hey, I have all the information I need right here, and that's great, right? That is such a small part of the story, right? In terms of preparing your personal finances and making sure that, you know, you meet your objectives in terms of work, and then eventually when you want to not work and you want to be retired and enjoy your life, right? That, I think, cannot be overstated, how important it is to have that person in your corner, in this case, myself, working for you. Somebody that has gone through what I've gone through, and when I walk into a relationship with a client, that's the type of energy I'm bringing in terms of, I don't want you to ever have to unnecessarily struggle because of something you can control. In this case, your finances. I tell my clients all the time, I wish I could take away all your pains, all your worries, all your struggles. I can't. But let me at least put your mind at ease financially. And that doesn't necessarily mean, make no mistake, I'm not saying here, hey, give me $1 and I'll turn it into $1 million. No. What I'm going to do is paint a very clear picture of where you're at and where you're headed. If that picture looks good to you, great.
So to that point, Ryan, what I want to do is, we're going to take a break here in a second, but when we come back from this commercial break, Ryan and I are going to go through some of the tactics, tips, and strategies you can implement in your life today to help make that change and build that financial security. So we'll be right back with this word from our sponsors.
Aloha! Joe Silva here with Kukua Technologies. I'm excited to see you on Tuesdays on Morning Coffee for our tech tips.
Let's face it, lawyers get a bad rap. I'm Erin Brucey, host of Legal Breakdown, where we dissect legal topics for the everyday viewer, with a mix of interesting guests to talk about current events and hot legal topics. Let's work together to make the law accessible and relevant to everyone. Catch us every week on RVN Television.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Real Results. I'm your host, Coach Joe Villegas, and again, if you've been living under a rock and haven't been watching up to this point, I've got my dear friend Ryan Grady with me here today, and Ryan's helping us with some financial wellness tips. And so, Ryan, you've had a lot of life you've lived already, and a very incredible journey, incredible story, and you are now helping folks learn from what you've been through, overcome adversity in the financial wellness realm. So, up to this point, you've talked about kind of your passion for like the struggle, right? The grind, whatever you want to
Sure.
call it.
Yeah, I
it's
like
sort of
that.
the
I like
day-to-day, like how do we build this house, maybe a mansion even, brick by brick and get through this whole thing. That's what you love to do, for sure. Most people don't love that. They don't like the monotony of hey, I got to go do the same workouts all the time, or I gotta meal prep and deal with these things. Like that's boring or what have you. I want to get to the exciting stuff. But we know flash is trash without the basics. You got to have the fundamentals. So what I want to go through now and pick your brain for the viewers is what are some things that folks can start to do today? Let's say, regardless if they're maybe older and retirement's on the horizon, or maybe they're younger. They've just got out of college and they've got debt and they got all these things they got to handle. Like, what are some things we can start to do today to move the needle and improve our financial wellness overall? And I know I'm throwing a whole bunch at you right now, so
No, this is great.
gut reaction. Let's just kind of dig through it. Let's do it.
So right off the bat, you should be a professional athlete or win the lottery.
Yeah, check.
That would help you.
Yes, for sure.
So asking all the right questions, right? And the first thing is, especially at our company, one of the biggest things we talk about is having a plan.
Yes.
Right? And coming from the fitness world, there's so many parallels between what I did over a decade in fitness and now what we're doing in finance.
Right?
Yeah. So I mean, you know it, right? You walk in the gym with no plan, you're going to walk out and be like, what did I just do? Did I get better? I have no idea. How do I gauge it, right? I have no idea. Well, your financial health and wellness is the same way. What is the plan? Where are we? Like I talked about, where are we at? What am I doing to get to where I want to go? And how do I measure that? We talk about this at work all the time too. Listen, a statement is not a plan. No. So if what you're doing right now, and I don't care where you are in life, is at the end of the year, you look at your 401k, you look at your IRAs, you look at your non-qualified, your brokerage accounts, and you say, I'm up 5%, I'm down 10%, I'm up. Great. What does that mean?
Right.
What does that mean for next year? What does that mean for 5 years? What does that mean for when you want to retire?
Right.
When are you going to be able to retire? Like, does that answer any of those questions? I would argue it does not, right? No, I don't have to argue. It does not, right?
No, yeah.
And that's how a lot of people are operating. I look at my statement, account goes up, account goes down, right? And yes, to some degree, that advice of, hey, don't worry about it, the market goes up, it goes down, what it does. But that's still not a plan, right?
Right.
And as you and I have talked about, you're going to blink and you're going to be 40. You're going to blink, you're going to be 50. You're going to blink and you're going to be planning a retirement party, right?
Yes.
So right off the bat, having a plan. Now, if you're someone who you enjoy doing that and you want to build it yourself, great. Would still recommend seeking out a professional to at least say, and this is what we do at Paradigm. For free, let us do a consultation. We will look at your plan, and I would be thrilled to tell you, this looks great. You got the right investments, you got the right strategy.
Your thing.
You're doing your thing. I can't provide any more value than you already have. There's no need to pay me a dime. Right? That usually isn't the case as things comes in, and we're happy to give feedback and say this is where we could add value. If you want to engage, let's talk about what that looks like. So
there's sorry, I was going to interrupt. So there's kind of like, it's funny when we talk about the parallels of health and wealth. There's kind of like three criteria. I'd like to pick your brain just real quick and see if you agree with this. There's sort of three qualifiers when I talk to somebody when they say, hey Joe, I want to work with you as a coach, or hey, I just want to hire a coach. Who do I talk to? I don't know. What do I do? And I say, okay, there's three criteria, and think of it like a stool. If you have all three, stool's going to stay up and you can sit on it and you're good. If you're missing one of the legs, not good. So the first is, do you have the knowledge to do the thing you want to do?
Right.
And maybe you do, maybe you don't. And if you don't, you talk to someone like yourself who has a lot of knowledge. You've probably forgotten more about finance than I know. The second criteria is, do you have the time to do that thing? So in the case of, we say the gym, like, do you have the time to write your own program and think through it intelligently, et cetera? Or in your case, it's, do you have the time to put together a financial plan? Because as you know better than anybody, a financial plan is not just where do I put my investments. It's estate planning and all these other things that most people don't even think about until it's too late.
Correct.
So there's those two. And the third would be, do you even have the desire to do that in the first place? And if you don't, find somebody who does. And obviously you meet those criteria, right? You know what you're doing. This is what you do full time. And you're very passionate about it. So for folks who maybe don't meet those three criteria, then yes, that would be the time you go and talk to a professional to help you out and make that happen.
And I'll elaborate on that.
Yes, please.
Right? So I would agree with that 100%. And what I see and may apply to a lot of people watching now is, so you asked about, hey, what are some takeaways? Number one, the importance of a legitimate plan.
Yes.
Number two, making the distinction between what we call the accumulation phase, your working years,
Right.
and the distribution phase. Hey, I'm retired, I'm going to begin to take income from these accounts, my 401k that I built up, whatever it may be.
Right.
Those are two distinct different times in your life. Now, maybe when you were working, you were willing to manage your money because let's face it, your 401k is down 10%. Guess what? You're getting up the next day and going to work.
We'll
It's up 10%. Guess what? You're getting up the next day and going to work.
Right.
So yeah, it's a little easier because the risks are different. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't put thought into it and strategize on how you invest.
Sure.
But the risks are very different when you're in that phase of your life. Once you retire, and there's no more bonuses, there's no more raises, right? We all know what inflation is capable of. We all live through it. I don't need to go into that. We could do another 3-hour segment on that, right?
We'll spare everybody.
We won't bore you to tears on that. But now you're no longer working, getting raises to keep up with the cost of living. You have this pile of cash that you saved. If you're fortunate, you have a pension, which is rare and rare nowadays.
And they're disappearing.
Yes, right? So in the corporate world, they're becoming less and less. People are living longer. Laws are reflecting that, and the science is reflecting that. People are living longer. Think about it. You retire at 65. You have to plan for 30 plus years of income from your money. What if you make a poor decision that irreparably damages those funds that now you're 80 years old thinking, oh no, I'm running out of money. We call that longevity risk, right? Outliving your money. That terrifies, when I, again, talk about passion, things I want to help my clients never have to deal with, longevity risk, outliving your money. That's something you don't ever want to have to deal with. Understanding something we call sequence of return risk, right? A big one. And
spell that out in layman's terms.
Speaking of writing something down, for those people who are approaching retirement, in retirement, this is one of the biggest things you'd be thinking about, especially what we saw in 2022. So sequence of return risk says, hey, I got this pile of money, and I'm going to retire, and I'm going to begin taking income from that. I have $1 million, I'm going to take 5%. I'm going to take $50,000 every year, and I should be good. I should never run out of money, right? Well, let's say in that first year, you didn't really pay attention to your investments. You're all in U.S. equities. You weren't really thinking about it, and you're not paying an advisor. Why would you do that? You made all this money. You'll be fine.
You're smart enough,
right? And in that year, we see what we saw here in 2022, and maybe down 10%, 15%. On top of you're withdrawing 5% to live your life.
Right.
And let's say the next year, hey, the market unfortunately doesn't bounce back like we hoped, and now you're down another 5, 6, 7, 8% on top of these 5% withdrawals.
Yes.
In those first 2 years, you've most likely done serious damage to the ability to have a successful retirement, AKA not run out of money.
Right.
An advisor is going to help you invest in such a way you can weather that storm. So regardless of when you retire, you're going to have a bucket of short-term investments, conservative investments to deliver that short-term income.
Yes.
So that those other assets that are down 10, 15, we're not touching those.
They can grow and continue to do their thing.
Yep, we call them buckets. It's our bucket strategy, right? A lot of advisors use similar terminology and similar methods, right? Short-term, intermediate, long-term. Again, we talked about this. I'm in this world, so to me this is common sense.
Yes.
It's not to everyone,
no.
Especially to retail investors. But the takeaway here is different ball game when you're working, collecting a paycheck, and retired and it's time to take income. My company specializes in the latter, working with those types of clients or people approaching or in retirement. That's what we do. You wouldn't go to a knee doctor to look at your shoulder.
No.
Right?
Hopefully not.
If you want to engage with our company, Paradigm Wealth Advisory, if you're 21, can we help you? Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. But if you're approaching retirement and retirement, we're the ones. That's your specialty.
Well,
right?
I do want to switch gears a little bit to maybe some of the younger crowd.
Absolutely.
Right? I heard a statistic a while ago, and you can stop me if this is off base or it's been updated since. But it was something like, I think over 70% of Americans, total Americans, don't even have $500 on hand in the event of an emergency. When I almost fell out of my chair when I first heard that. And I think, a lot of it is a product of your environment. Like, I grew up in a house where, my folks were very money conscious. Like, they talked about it a lot and they're very open about it. So to me, it's like, I have to have money set aside. I need to keep an eye on my stuff, whatever. This is probably going to sound pretty ridiculous to those watching. Hi, Mom. But basically, every morning I'll get up and I'll check my account. I'm very much of the mindset, what gets measured gets managed, right? And so if I'm not looking at it, who knows what's happening? But for, let's say, some of the younger crowd where maybe they don't have $500 on hand, or maybe they're not worried about retirement now because, hey, I'm just trying to get going on my career.
Sure.
I've got student loan debt out the nose. what are some things they can do today to begin to set themselves up that maybe aren't necessarily like investment related?
Yes.
Right? So like how can we start to kind of help them to like pad themselves? Because some of these, I mean, these life events are going to happen.
Absolutely.
There are going to be deaths in the family. People are going to get sick. You might have to become a caretaker for a family member. So
Great point.
How do you begin to set yourself up, not because you're nervous or scared that life's going to happen, but just so you have the certainty
Yes.
of knowing, like, hey, I can still enjoy my life. I can go out to dinner with my friends. I can, put money into things I like to do. But at the same time, I'm being conscious and smart about the income that I have coming in. What are just a couple things we can maybe share with
So
viewers?
if you're a younger investor, right, or you're thinking about that, or just thinking about saving, thinking about your financial
Yes.
wealth and wellness, excuse me. Right off the bat, you want to just think of it like a checklist, right? And this is not unique to me or our company. These are out there.
The fundamentals.
The fundamentals, right? And you want to kind of go through the checklist. And the first one is, do I have debt, right? And that becomes priority number one.
Okay.
Right, and again, a common strategy that people know. All right, I'm going to attack my high interest debt that I'm paying all this interest on.
Right.
I got to get rid of that.
Yes.
So with a laser beam, and I'm not skirting the question. That is the answer,
Yes.
step one, because it becomes easier to make the decision not to spend the money on the new pair of shoes, because
Right.
I have a goal of getting rid of this debt.
Right.
So any discretionary funds, you're throwing at that debt. Okay, once you've done that, short-term savings. I don't want to get back into debt.
No.
I need to build up that short-term savings so if the tire blows on my car, if something
Right.
I need to fix, I can pull cash out of my savings to pay for it. I don't have to put it on a credit card and go through that rigmarole. Right. So get rid of that debt, starting with the high interest, working your way down. Now, student loans, mortgages, things like that, they may be
More longer term.
More longer term, but
Sure.
we're talking credit cards, things like that you can
Yeah,
really
let's
get rid of.
talk like in the immediate. Like
Sure.
let's say in the next 3 to 6 months,
Yep.
someone's like, hey, I saw the show that I want people to watch this and say, you know what, I listened to what Ryan said and it helped change the trajectory of my financial future. And I obviously agree with you. Get rid of your high interest debt right
Yep.
away. If you've got a credit card that's got money sitting on it, knock that bad boy out. Set aside your emergency fund. What's like step 3? Let's go with the next one too.
So if, and this is making some assumptions, right?
Sure.
But once you've done those things, someone who's young, and this is an important reminder to all of them, because when I was turning 30, I thought I'm ancient, right? And then I'm like, then I turned 40, I'm like, oh,
Now you're ancient, right?
Okay,
No.
so I'm sure I'll go through this again at 50. But when you're young, you have the greatest asset that I cannot give to anyone,
Yes.
and that's time.
Yes.
Right? It does not take a lot of money going into savings to have a profound impact down the road.
Yes.
And I say down the road, that could be 5, 10, 15, 20 years,
knows?
right?
Right.
So understand that. Understand you don't have to I don't have $500 to save a month. That's okay.
That's okay. You can accumulate it.
That's okay. You can accumulate. So we talked about paying down debt. We talked about short-term savings. If you now we got to look with an eye towards the future, right?
Yes.
Because like we talked, it's going to creep up on you quick. Does your company offer a 401k? And if so, are you getting that? Is there a match? And are you getting that match?
Right.
You are literally losing free money if you're not doing that.
At least, so you're saying at least put in up to the match.
And if you're like, I've talked to young people who are like, oh, I don't even know how that works or how to, then go talk to HR.
Yeah.
Talk to us. I will get on the phone with you
Right.
and the plan administrator and say,
100%.
help us. I want you to help this individual get this set up.
Yes.
Because if you have access to that, again, I think about my parents. My dad worked for GM. My mom worked for a doctor. My dad was in Vietnam. I'm like, they didn't have a lot of money, and everything they had, I have 2 sisters
Right
and
into
brothers,
you
they
guys.
gave
Yeah,
to
yeah.
us because God bless them, that's what they thought. But guess what? When it came to retirement, they didn't plan as well as maybe they could have,
Sure,
right? No
sure.
one, I wish that somebody would have grabbed them at 30, 40, 50 years old and said, hey guys, you need to start putting away a little money. So, and I'll just add it to the list of reasons why I'm passionate about
Yes.
getting to people as soon as possible, but
100%.
whenever I can.
Well,
So-
and we're doing that now, right? So
absolutely.
you would say those 3 steps to get
Huge.
started, for sure.
Absolutely.
So again, knocking down that high interest debt, setting aside a little money, let's say each month, pay yourself first. If
Yeah.
it's $50, $100, stash it away, and then we're getting into the...
Now we're talking about more longer term,
long-term.
your retirement. And again, it comes down to taking advantage of what's available to you.
Right.
So whether it's your 401k, right, and hopefully an employer match, and I'll even, side note to that, right?
Yep.
people, if you're familiar with Roth contributions, I'll give you, this is another tidbit for younger people.
Well, let's give people like the
Real
cliff
quick.
note, like super
Cliff
quick.
notes, right? So Roth traditional, if you're making Roth contributions, that means you're paying the taxes now,
You don't gotta
putting
pay
the
later.
money in, it grows tax deferred, you take it out tax free. If you
Right.
are young, can't give this blanket advice, but typically that's
Yes.
a good idea. Taxes are probably only going up. You're probably not making as much now as you will down the road.
Yep.
Pay the taxes, put it to work. There's a free piece of advice.
So, I mean, we could sit here all day and
All
go through
day.
this stuff,
All day.
but for the viewers, Ryan, how can folks get a hold of you? Where
Sure.
can they find you?
Yeah, so again, I'm an investment advisor, representative, vice president over at Paradigm Wealth Advisory. We are located in Bridgewater, New Jersey. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on YouTube as well. We're putting out content all the time to really help people for free. You can go on there, learn more about us, get some advice as well. Our website, www.pwa.us.com. Check us out there as well. Like I said, first consultation free. Would love to just the opportunity to sit down, talk, see what value we can add, and who knows, see if we can work together.
Fantastic. Well, Ryan, thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, my
Appreciate
pleasure, man.
you.
I didn't get to do all my jokes and everything, so you
Well,
gotta bring
the
me
next
back.
one. Yeah, for sure.
This was heavy, but I got more
No doubt.
material.
We appreciate it. And everyone, thank you for tuning in to Real Results. We'll catch you on the next episode.